I wasn't the one who stumbled upon them. She designed it. She looked me straight in the eye and said, I planned it. I planned the day you caught us. I wanted you to see. After the wave of public backlash, they went ahead and got married. The following year, she gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. My ex-husband's startup took off, and he became wildly successful. The four of them became the picture-perfect family everyone envied. As for me, not long after the divorce, the emotional backlash hit. Trauma and humiliation burned through me. My belief in fairness and karma collapsed. My career stalled. My love life died. My entire life went into free fall. Lost and barely functioning, one day I was crossing the street when a car hit me and sent me flying. Before I died, she came to see me. She said those words to me again. I died full of regret and resentment. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the scene of the affair. Chapter 1. I was lying in the emergency room, barely conscious. The doctor had just told me my injuries were too severe. There was nothing they could do. As I drifted in and out of awareness, thinking vaguely, fine. So this is how it ends, I heard the soft click of high heels. Chloe walked in. She was elegantly dressed, her skin glowing, looking even younger than she had 8 years ago when I caught her in bed with my husband. She looked at me with sadness and sympathy. Anna, she said softly, I never thought you'd end up like this. Life is funny, isn't it? After everything, I'm the one here at the end. She sighed. Since that's the case, let's treat this as a heart-to-heart. I didn't know why she was here. I wanted to turn my head away. I didn't want to look at her. But I couldn't. Because I was dying. Chloe sat down beside my bed and let out a quiet sigh. Then she spoke, as if talking to herself. I fell in love with Chad at first sight. For years, all I could do was watch you two date, get married, build a life together. I watched you live better and better, buying a bracelet without a second thought that cost more than my monthly paycheck. Her voice tightened. I couldn't understand it. We came from similar families, had similar education, similar looks. Why was it that just because you arrived 10 minutes earlier at that cafe, he fell in love with you instead of me? So I decided to fix it myself. I found a way to sleep with Chad. When he woke up, he was full of regret and guilt. He even tried to pay me to keep quiet. She smiled faintly. Later, even though he couldn't help coming back for a second time, a third time, he always regretted it. She let out a soft laugh. That wouldn't do. I knew you always prided yourself on being strong and dignified. You used to say that if your husband ever cheated, you'd never cry or make a scene. You'd divorce him immediately and never look back. So I begged Chad to sleep with me one last time. And I made sure you walked in on us. I stared at her, frozen, unable to believe what I was hearing. After the divorce, I quickly realized that my calm and grace had only been temporary. The backlash came soon enough. The betrayal, the public humiliation, the wound of being abandoned by the person closest to me tortured me day and night. Later, I watched them get married, have children, and succeed in business, while I sank deeper and deeper. I couldn't continue my work as a wedding designer. I didn't dare start another relationship. My life fell apart. The contrast was like torture. Anxiety. Self-loathing. The collapse of everything I believed in. Every day felt like my heart was on fire. Every night, I lay awake. I thought I was just unlucky. That I was weak. That I deserved it. I never imagined it was all calculated. Thank you, Anna, Chloe said gently. You didn't disappoint me. Your pride and dignity gave us our dignity, too. That's why Chad and I were able to turn things around so quickly. And of course, I should thank myself most of all. She tilted her head. After all, I did so much. I copied your way of speaking, your mannerisms. I paid people to get you fired again and again. Anne. She smiled. I even went abroad to a sperm bank and chose a donor who looked like Chad. That's how I got pregnant with twins. Despite how weak I was, her words made my eyes fly open. After I divorced Chad, he still begged me to come back. He knelt in front of me, swore he loved only me, swore he'd never see Chloe again. Until she told him she was pregnant. After that, especially after the babies were born, Chad treated me better and better. He really did fall in love with me, little by little. Her voice was full of triumph. Anna, I finally got to live your life. I changed my own fate with my own hands. It's just a shame no one knew. I never got to tell anyone. She looked at me with satisfaction. Thank God I get to tell you before you die. Since I've been so honest, I hope you won't blame me. Rest in peace. She stood gracefully, her face glowing with victory. Oh, right, she added. Aren't you wondering why I'm here? My favorite pastry shop closes at 9. My driver was afraid I wouldn't make it, so he drove a little fast. I hope you won't blame him. It was an accident. He'll probably be traumatized by this. Of course, I'll compensate you properly. But really, she smiled, no matter how much I pay, it's still less than the price of one of my handbags. She tilted her head, pretending to be troubled. But you're all alone now. No family. Who should I even pay? She laughed, shook her head, and walked out in her heels. I closed my eyes, my soul screaming. When I opened them again, I was standing at the top of the stairs. Downstairs, friends were laughing and chatting. Inside the room, 2 naked bodies were tangled together, lost in each other, gasping for breath. I froze for 2 seconds, then slapped myself hard. It hurt. Good. The next second, I screamed at the top of my lungs, "You shameless. You disgusting cheaters." Chapter 2. 2 flushed faces turned toward me at the same time, both of them panting. The moment Chad recognized me, his pupils shrank. His body jerked, and in his panic, he finished. Chloe let out a breathy gasp, then yanked the blanket over their bodies. In a hoarse, shaky voice, she said, "Anna, don't get upset. Please. This is all my fault. I seduced Chad. Don't blame him. If you're going to hit someone, hit me." She had said the exact same thing back then. At the time, I was a successful wedding designer with both career and marriage intact. To me, love and marriage allowed no flaws. If a man cheated, if his heart wandered, then he was done. So even though I had been furious, disgusted, and heartbroken, I'd looked at them with cold contempt and said, "You can have him." I hadn't even walked into the room. I'd turned around and left. Now, Chloe stared at me, her eyes flickering with expectation, clearly waiting to see what I would do. I lunged forward. I grabbed the kettle off the table and hurled it straight at Chad's face. Bang. Scalding water splashed over him. He screamed, clutching his face. At the same time, I darted around to Chloe's side. My left foot kicked all the clothes on the floor under the bed. My right foot braced against the bed frame. Both hands reached out and grabbed a fistful of Chloe's hair, yanking her hard. She took great pride in that hair. Thick. Long. Easy to grab. She had started this. So she would pay first. I twisted my wrist, wrapped the hair tighter, and slapped her across the face. Once. Twice. Over and over. 10 times. When one hand started to hurt, I switched and slapped her 10 more times. The whole sequence flowed smoothly, as if my body had rehearsed it 1,000 times. Half of Chloe's body was hanging off the bed. All her earlier seduction was gone. She stared at me in horror, upside down, her mouth making a series of uncontrollable, humiliating noises. On countless sleepless nights, I had regretted leaving that day. Why hadn't I humiliated them on the spot? Why hadn't I exposed their filth to everyone? In my imagination, I had replayed it over and over. In the end, nothing felt as satisfying as slapping her and pulling her hair. So when my screaming finally drew everyone upstairs, what they saw was this. Me, gripping Chloe's hair like I was in a tug-of-war, dragging her off the bed. Chloe, naked, clutching the blanket with both hands, refusing to let go. Chad, one hand on his burned face, the other desperately pulling on the opposite end of the blanket to cover himself. The three of us were locked in a ridiculous standoff. The people at the door were frozen in shock. A group of friends had rented the place for a weekend getaway. I was supposed to arrive the next day because of work, but Chloe had called to say Chad was drunk, so I changed my plans and rushed over that night. Now Chloe was suspended awkwardly, her swollen face barely recognizable, her voice slurred as she begged, "Help me, please, help." No one moved. Disgust and contempt showed on every face. But last time, it hadn't been like this. They hadn't seen the affair with their own eyes. They'd only known from our expressions and a few words. Seeing it and not seeing it were completely different. The impact was different. The level of disgust was different. In fact, years later, when Chad's business succeeded and Chloe transformed into a glamorous socialite, some of these same people would even sigh in admiration and say, "You proved that true love can overcome anything." Chapter 3. Anna, please, calm down. Chad's voice was shaking. From the neck up, his head was bright red. Blisters had formed on his once handsome face, and steam was still rising from his hair. He looked like a boiled lobster. Years ago, Chloe and I had agreed to meet at a cafe. She was late, so I opened my laptop and worked on my final project while waiting. Chad, who was sitting at the next table, smiled and asked, "Are you a design major too?" Chloe was 10 minutes late that day. Chad and I talked so easily, so naturally, that we forgot about everything else. By the time she arrived, I didn't even notice the way her eyes lit up when she looked at him. Chad was an exhibition space designer. In everyone's eyes, he was gentle, kind, and talented. Emotional. Soft-hearted. He even remembered to carry cat food for stray cats on the street. But he was soft-hearted to a fault. In my last life, he had knelt in front of me, crying, confessing that Chloe had once gotten drunk and told him she had loved him for years, that she had even saved herself for him. She cried and said she didn't ask for a relationship, only for one night. He refused her again and again, until he found out she was planning to hurt herself. Only then did he give in. I had been sickened beyond words. I just wanted to get as far away from those two as possible. Within a month, I cleanly divided the assets and filed for divorce. But now, I hated that I only had 2 hands. I wanted to tear at his face, rip every blister open. But I couldn't rush. Chloe only had this one chance. If she escaped, there might not be another. And Chad. Chad had to come home with me. How am I supposed to calm down? I asked through clenched teeth, glaring at him. His face was flushed, his lashes trembling, his expression full of shame. "Anna, please let her go. Let us get dressed. I'm begging you." I laughed coldly. "If you want to play the hero, fine. Chloe and I once swore that if either of us betrayed the other could slap them 30 times. I've done 20. I'm tired. You do the remaining 10. When you're done, I'll let her go." Chad shook his head in panic. "Anna, I'm not trying to play the hero." "Go ahead," Chloe suddenly cried. I seduced Chad. I drugged him. I'm shameless. I'm disgusting. I'm the homewrecker. It has nothing to do with him. Hurry, hit me. My stomach, my waist. I can't hold on anymore." Her voice was pitiful and desperate. Part of it was an act for Chad. Part of it was real. After all, she was pregnant with twins. Our friends crowded at the doorway. Someone muttered, "Don't be impulsive." Someone else said, "Let's talk this out." But no one moved. They were watching. I thought Chad would hesitate. After all, he was kind. Soft-hearted. But before Chloe even finished speaking, he wrapped himself in the blanket and moved over to her. Then, smack, smack, smack. The sound was sharp and clear. One slap was too light. I frowned. Chad immediately hit harder. Blood spattered from Chloe's nose. For a split second, surprise and hurt flickered across her face. But she had planned for this. This was exactly what she wanted. After the 10 slaps, her swollen, misshapen face somehow forced out a smile at Chad. "I don't blame you," she said through swollen lips. She looked at him with the tragic, devoted gaze of a woman suffering for love. Chad turned his face away. 2 seconds later, he looked at me, his eyes trembling. "Anna, is it enough now?" I was expressionless. "Of course not. You put this disgusting betrayal on me. If I only hit the other woman and not you, people will think I'm pathetic, that I only dare take it out on women." Chad nodded immediately. He closed his eyes, lifted his face, and said in a voice full of pain, "Anna, do it. I just want you to get it out. We can talk when we get home." I looked at the blisters on his face, so swollen they looked ready to burst, and changed my mind. I lowered my gaze to Chloe. "You do it." She froze, then shook her head, her face crumpling. "No, no." Chad suddenly roared, "Hurry up. Do it. Anything is better than this." So Chloe, in an awkward, miserable posture, began to slap him. "Are you two flirting?" I asked. "Harder," Chad gritted out. When Chloe pulled her hand back, I caught sight of the sticky mess on her palm. In the end, the farce ended with Chad wrapped in a blanket and Chloe wrapped in a sheet, both of them lying on the floor, fishing their clothes out from under the bed. My anger meter finally dropped by 10%. Chapter 4. Losing control was losing control. But it was only to vent the rage I hadn't released back then because I wanted to look cool. I'd been given a second life. I wasn't about to waste it on nothing but tantrums. Embarrassment? Who cared? People forget. They always do. Chad was an independent designer who had spent years in the art world. He had talent. He had work to show for it. A scandal like this wouldn't truly hurt him. At most, it would become a piece of gossip people mentioned when talking about him. I knew Chad well. The thing he cared about most in his life was his career. In my last life, an art investment group had spotted him, given him angel funding, and he'd gone on to build a wildly successful company. He became wealthy and admired. Chloe turned into a glamorous socialite overnight. In fact, the proposal he later used to secure that investment was already in development at this point. Before his affair was exposed, we often discussed concepts and layouts together. I even helped him with some of the spatial designs. Being a strong female lead wasn't wrong. Being a stupid one was. Walking away with grace was just the surface. A real strong woman uses every resource available, turns other people's momentum into her own, and climbs to the top herself. I was going to change fate. Chad's fate. Chloe's fate. My own fate. After Chad knelt in front of me for 3 days, one evening, I looked out the window and sighed. Then I turned to him, eyes red, voice soft and wronged. "Do your legs hurt?" He froze, disbelief on his face. Then his eyes lit up, his voice trembling. "They do. Anna, are you finally willing to talk to me?" That night, he kept repeating that he loved me. That he only felt sorry for Chloe. That he'd been too close to her and accidentally given her an opening. I asked, eyes red, "So, you really only slept with her because she drugged you?" He nodded without hesitation. "Yes." I was silent for a few seconds. "I'm planning to quit my job," I said. "What you two did, it made me doubt marriage and love. I can't face couples in love anymore." Chad looked stricken. "It's all my fault. But it's okay. I'll support you from now on. I'm talking to an investment group. I'm confident I'll succeed." I looked at him and said slowly, "But I don't want to give up design. If I can't be a wedding designer anymore, take me into your field. His eyes lit up. No problem. Anna, I'll teach you everything. We'll build a business together as husband and wife and enjoy success together. How wonderful is that? I lowered my eyes and murmured, okay. The next day, he sent me all his materials and notes and started working on lesson plans. I had said it before. He was genuinely talented. During the day, he worked and did all the housework. At night, he poured out everything he knew, teaching me without holding back. We slept in separate rooms. He said he understood, smiling easily. It's okay, Anna. I believe one day, you'll open your heart to me again. During this time, I didn't forget about Chloe. She worked as a teacher at a public kindergarten. I took the things she'd said that day, turned them into a jingle, and paid for a mobile billboard truck. It arrived across the street from her school right before pickup time. The screen lit up. The speakers came on. I seduced Chad. I drugged him. I'm shameless. I'm a homewrecker. Bright colors. A ridiculously cheerful tune. The kind that gets stuck in your head after one listen. Parents stopped. Stared. Some laughed. Some pulled out their phones to film. Someone asked, "Is this a joke?" Someone else said, "No way, is this about that teacher?" The school called security. The district was notified. But the truck was perfectly legal. It stayed there until the last child was picked up. Chloe never showed her face. She didn't walk out with the other teachers. She didn't stand at the gate. She slipped out through the back. That evening, another truck drove slowly past her parents' house. Same song. Same words. Neighbors came out to look. Curtains moved. Phones were raised. This time, there was no school to hide behind. Her parents were furious and wanted to call the police. She stopped them. I knew she was enduring it. Lying low. Because she still had a trump card. Chad was Catholic. He had said more than once in front of friends that life was sacred and abortion was a moral sin. Before my accident in my last life, Chad came to see me after he'd made it big. By then, I was in a terrible state, thin and hollow. I told him to get lost. He smiled casually and handed me a card, speaking with the calm authority of someone on top. Anna, no matter what, I love you. I want to share my success with you. But Chloe gave me 2 children. I can't let my flesh and blood grow up without their mother. I know you're struggling financially. I can buy you another apartment. I'll go back on weekends to be with the kids, but during the week, I can spend time with you. I chased him out with the cleaning robot. Looking back now, Chloe had thought it through. She knew she might not be able to secure Chad with herself alone, so she chose his weak spot. Children. One day, I came home. Chloe was sitting on the couch. Chad stood nearby, frowning, sighing heavily. When he saw me, Chloe immediately looked flustered. I rushed over to tear into her. Chad grabbed me. He hesitated for a long moment, then forced out, "She's pregnant. With my child." Chloe sobbed. Anna, I'm sorry. I had no choice. He's the father. I had to tell him. I turned to Chad. You believe her? He lowered his head. I do. Why? His face flushed. The first time with her, she was a virgin. I could tell. Chloe suddenly dropped to her knees in front of me, tears streaming as she swore to the heavens. Anna, we've been best friends for years. You know I never dated. If this child isn't Chad's, I hope I suffer in my next life. She looked at me, her eyes full of naked provocation and calculation. I knew what she was doing. She was trying to push me. Waiting for me to explode, to demand a divorce. After what happened that day, I hadn't chosen to divorce Chad. That must have shocked her. Confused her. So she lay low for a while. Then she played her ace. In her imagination, there was no way I could tolerate my husband having illegitimate children. At that moment, Chad hesitated, then slowly knelt as well. Anna, I'm begging you. I'll transfer all my assets, before and after marriage, into your name. Please, let these two innocent lives live. I looked at the two people kneeling in front of me. I was silent for a moment. Then I covered my face with both hands, my voice breaking with pain. I'm not a heartless person. If it's come to this, then let her have them. Chloe jerked her head up, eyes wide with shock. Chapter 5. Chad was overjoyed. He jumped up and tried to hug me. Don't touch me. I feel sick. I turned aside, avoiding him, then said with red eyes, we were husband and wife. I can't be the kind of person who blocks two lives from coming into this world. I can't carry that sin. Chad's eyes reddened. He couldn't hold back and went to call his parents. The living room was left with just Chloe and me. She stood up, staring at me with dark, unreadable eyes. I sat in the rocking chair, swaying slowly, meeting her gaze. We had known each other for years. We understood each other well. She was never the type to quietly accept her fate. And I was never the type to swallow humiliation. Last time had been chaos. She'd been caught off guard, and I'd only cared about venting. Then there were all the things I did afterward. She was fired from the kindergarten. Kicked out by her parents. Shunned and despised among our friends. She had endured all of it. Because she knew very well, Chad still had feelings for me. The more miserable and pitiful she appeared, the more likely he would agree to let the children be born when she finally played that card. She wasn't in a hurry. She had planned for a long time. Spent a lot. Endured humiliation. Moved step by step. And in truth, she had succeeded. When I died, the Chloe I saw was elegant, jeweled, every inch a pampered rich wife. But now, she was still the same shabby, dark Chloe. You've changed, she said slowly, with a hint of mockery. You used to say you wanted to be the heroine of your own life. Turns out you can even accept your husband's illegitimate children. I tilted my head and looked at her. I'm not sure if I've changed. But Chloe, tell me, did you become this shameless and degraded later on, or were you always like this, just better at hiding it before? Her face tightened. Her voice grew cold. Say whatever you want. But let me remind you of one thing. I endured everything you did to me. That doesn't mean I won't strike back. The babies in my stomach are already 4 months along. 2 formed lives. If you pretend to be kind on the surface but plan to hurt my children behind my back, I won't let you off. I laughed softly. Relax. I'm not as dirty as you. Let me put it this way. You know I'm a clean break kind of person emotionally. After what Chad did, I probably can't stay married to him. But I'm not going to lose both the man and the money. If he transfers all his assets to me now, I'm willing to divorce him immediately. A strong woman doesn't keep trash men, but not a cent of money gets left behind. In my last life, I'd been so disgusted I just wanted a quick divorce and barely fought for the assets. Later, when my life fell apart, I was financially trapped. This time, my position was clear. The marriage would end. The money would all be mine. And the children would be born. When Chloe heard I was willing to divorce, her eyes lit up instantly. Then a trace of sarcasm crept in. She was mocking my short-sightedness. In her eyes, Chad was a rising star. His future was limitless. His current assets were just bargaining chips. As for feelings, she had full confidence in the children in her womb. I had seen the twins in my last life. They looked a lot like Chad. Anyone would believe they were his. She must have spent a lot of effort finding the right donor. I had to admit, she was thorough. But Chad wasn't stupid either. Before the children were safely born, there was no way he'd do something as foolish as transferring all his assets. As for making me divorce, that depended on Chloe's ability. At that moment, I planted a seed in her mind. Chloe was scheming, ruthless, willing to do anything to reach her goal. I believed she could pull it off. A few months. I could wait. Chapter 6. Once Chloe figured out my position, she went back to focus on her pregnancy. Chad, eager to prove his loyalty to me, didn't visit her even once. Instead, he brought his parents in. He rented a larger place and moved them there to take care of her. The old couple didn't dare face me. They only sent me a message, thanking me and saying that the children I would have in the future would be the true heirs of their family. I almost laughed. For a while, everything seemed to fall into routine. Chad became busy preparing for an investment pitch scheduled 6 months later. He worked at the studio during the day and taught me exhibition design at night. His life was entering its prime. As if that scandal had somehow added a strange glow to his world. As for me, I focused on 2 things. The first. I found a girl named Lily. She was one of Chad's competitors in the industry and had designed several successful exhibition spaces. But she was plain-looking, stuttered when she spoke, and rarely appeared in public. In my last life, when Chad was at the height of his success, I had seen a piece of news online about her suing him for stealing her designs under the guise of collaboration. It hadn't made much of a splash. Even though I had already mastered Chad's carefully refined methods, concepts, and frameworks, I needed real cases if I wanted to attract capital. I found Lily in an old building in a run-down neighborhood. I was surprised that someone so talented was living in a place like that. She wore thick glasses and explained calmly, "I can't get projects on my own. By the time the money is divided, there's barely anything left for me." I asked her if she wanted to work with me. She looked at me through her lenses. She was smart. Sharp. Gifted. I had seen her work. Quiet, elegant, brilliantly conceived. But this world placed far too much weight on appearance, leaving no space for people like her. After thinking for a day, she agreed. "I want to succeed," she said. "I want full control over my work. I want my designs on a bigger stage, seen by more people." I admired her ambition. And her honesty. The second thing. I sold the apartment my parents had left me. Together with my savings, I put everything into Bitcoin. It was 2017. Bitcoin was around $2,000. In my last life, before I died, I remembered it reaching over 100,000. Since I had been given a second chance. Revenge had to be taken. Money had to be made. There was no investment more effortless, more rewarding than this. I bought 200 coins. I memorized the password until it was burned into my brain. So well I felt nauseous. So well I was certain I'd never forget it, even in my next life. Then I put it completely out of my mind. As if it had never happened. Bitcoin needed time to ferment. But Chloe. She was almost ready. Chapter 7. When she was 8 months pregnant, the night she gave birth to the twins, Chad knocked on my door and woke me up. Standing outside, he said, "My parents are at the hospital. They're insisting I go over. I'll check on things and be right back." He didn't come back for 3 days. I didn't bother chasing him. I was busy revising proposals with Lily, spending entire days at her place in that rundown neighborhood. The more time I spent with her, the more I realized how knowledgeable, sharp, and genuinely interesting she was. Being around her was comfortable. I could even feel that she was, meeting me where I was, adjusting herself downward so I wouldn't feel pressured. One of our mutual friends went to the hospital to visit and called me afterward. "Anna, this is so unfair to you. Those twins look exactly like Chad. His parents are there calling them their precious grandson and granddaughter. Even the doctors and nurses keep saying what a happy family they are." On the 4th day, when I came back from Lily's place, I saw Chad sitting on the couch, his expression complicated. His brows were tightly drawn. He looked like he wanted to speak but didn't know how. I asked how the babies were. His eyes reddened instantly. He suddenly dropped to his knees. Anna, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. My parents, they threatened their lives to make me come back and discuss something with you. I looked at him. What is it? You know how my family is. Everything is about the family name and the trust. They refused to have the kids born outside of a legal marriage. They said it would be a scandal. That it would affect the inheritance and the paperwork. So, they told me I had to come talk to you. He closed his eyes. His voice trembled. They want us to file for a legal separation. Just on paper. So Chloe can be listed as the custodial parent for the trust and insurance paperwork. Once everything is settled, once the kids are registered and the family is satisfied, I'll come back. We'll fix us. I didn't say anything. He opened his eyes. Seeing my silence, he shuffled forward on his knees, pulled a document from his bag, and handed it to me. Anna, I know this is unfair to you, so I signed a property agreement. It transfers all my assets, before and after marriage, into your name. This is the security I can give you as your husband. Don't worry. Once things calm down and my investment comes through, I'll marry you back in style. I took the document and looked down at it. After a moment, I raised my head. Does Chloe agree? He froze slightly. Why does she need to agree? In front of you, we're both sinners. She feels guilty. She didn't say a single word about these arrangements. I sighed. At this point, what choice do I have? It's all for two innocent lives. Anna, don't worry. Even if we're divorced, I'll still come see you often. We can be like before. Listening to him repeat the same lines he'd used in my last life, I couldn't help letting out a cold laugh. So what you're saying is, I become your mistress while you enjoy having both? His face stiffened. Of course not. My stomach turned. The next day, we went to file for divorce. We were both in a hurry. He was in a hurry because there was a mandatory waiting period, and they wanted the marriage certificate before the baby's baptism. I was in a hurry. Because I was simply in a hurry. Chad, feeling guilty, completed the asset transfer quickly and cleanly. Of course, much of his confidence came from the large investment he was certain he was about to receive. During that time, Lily and I took a short trip to a coastal city. When we came back, the waiting period was over. At the courthouse, I saw Chad and Chloe. She had just finished her postpartum recovery. They were planning to host the baby celebration the next day. They wanted to finalize the divorce and get married immediately. So eager. Chad stared at me. Anna, I heard you went on a trip to clear your head. Are you feeling better now? Much better. Chloe looked at me coolly, with a trace of quiet mockery. That faint arrogance from my last life was already showing. As Chad stepped away, I suddenly spoke. I once asked Chad if he would have fallen for you if you had arrived at the cafe earlier. Chloe's eyes flickered. She clearly cared about the answer. I smiled. He said no. I asked why. After all, back then we were similar in every way. People even said we looked like twins. You know what he said? Chloe pressed her lips together, silent. I continued casually. He said, I don't like complicated women. There's too much going on in Chloe's eyes. She listened calmly. Even her voice was steady. Anna, are you trying to provoke me? If you are, you underestimate me. You may look down on me. You may talk about being a strong woman and not competing with other women. But I'm goal-oriented. I wanted this man, and now I have him. After today, I'll be Chad's lawful wife. Not you. As for whether he loves me or not, time is long. That depends on my ability. I smiled at her. Are you sure, time is long? Chapter 8. The next day, I went to the twins' 1-month celebration that Chad was hosting. His parents were loudly telling everyone they met, they registered long ago. We just didn't announce it, which caused all those misunderstandings. Our Chad is soft-hearted and was trying to protect his ex-wife's reputation. When I walked in, the guests who recognized me all showed awkward expressions. I pretended not to notice and walked straight up to Chad, who was beaming. "Anna, I didn't expect you to come," he said, clearly surprised. I smiled. Of course I came. A day this important, I had to witness it in person. Not far away, Chloe spotted me and pushed the stroller over. People kept stopping her to congratulate her, so she had to pause and smile politely every few steps. I handed Chad a folder and said gently, "These are Chloe's records from an IVF procedure she had overseas almost a year ago. Consider it my gift to you." Chad took the documents and flipped through them. After a long moment, he looked up in a daze. Why would she need IVF? I looked at Chloe, who had already walked over, her expression guarded. "That's something you'll have to ask her." With that final line, I turned and walked away. The next day, Lily and I went back to the coastal city. I sold my house and my car. This time, I didn't buy Bitcoin. I used every dollar to renovate an art exhibition space. It was a design Lily had kept on her computer for years. Her dream project. The one Chad had stolen in my last life and later won awards with. Lily's eyes reddened. I once asked God why he gave me the ability to dream but not the ability to realize those dreams. Now I understand. He chose the best way. Thank you for finding me. For a while, Lily and I stayed in the coastal city. Chad called me countless times. Chloe did too. I didn't read a single message. I immersed myself in the world Lily was building, enjoying the elegance of art, unwilling to deal with those rotten people and their mess. Until one day, I ran into an old friend while having dinner with an investor. "Anna, what are you doing in the coastal city? Do you know?" Huge news, the twins aren't Chad's. From her, I learned what had happened. The day after the celebration, Chad took the babies for a paternity test. They said when he got the report, he collapsed to the ground. That same day, Chloe and the 2 one-month-old babies were thrown out and sent back to her parents' place. Chad's parents, furious that their son had been tricked, went every day to Chloe's parents' neighborhood, screaming and cursing from morning to night, demanding compensation. Chloe's parents couldn't take it and came out to shout back. Chad's parents were from the countryside, their accent thick. They were completely outmatched. In their rage, both of them collapsed. At first, people thought they were acting and just watched. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, one had their mouth twisted to the left, the other to the right. They had both had strokes. A few days later, Chad unexpectedly took Chloe and the children back. He said that since they were married, they were family, and now that the elders were ill, someone had to take care of them. Once, late at night, I suddenly got a message from Chloe that just said 911. I called back, and Chad answered. He said it was an accident while handling the baby. Chad came looking for me again after that, asking if I knew where you went. He even contacted our friends. He's changed so much. He used to be gentle and always smiling. Now he looks dark. Chapter 9. The night I returned from the coastal city, I saw Chad downstairs at my new place. At first, I didn't recognize him. He was still in a suit, but he had become thin and hollow, his face dark, his whole presence strangely subdued. Not calm. The kind of quiet that comes before a storm. I frowned. "How did you get my address?" I asked the agent who sold the apartment. When I rushed to leave for the coastal city, I had used the same agent to sell and buy. He stood in the shadows, looking at me with heavy eyes. "Anna, I don't blame you." I let out a cold laugh. He didn't care about my reaction. His voice was steady. "I was the one who betrayed you first. You getting revenge on me is fair. Anna, we loved each other. Everything that happened was Chloe's doing. She finally admitted it. It was all her scheme. She even harmed my parents. Sooner or later, I'll make her pay. I was too soft, too kind. That's an artist's nature. But it's a man's weakness. It won't happen again. I'm glad, Anna. We're even now. Everything can still be fixed. My investment is about to be finalized. It's a huge amount, 8 figures. I didn't tell you because I wanted to surprise you. Once the money comes in, none of this matters. The old apartment is gone, so what? I'll buy you a bigger one. I'll hire people to take care of my parents. They treated you badly, you wouldn't want to deal with them anyway. And the children, Anna. We'll have children of our own. Real ones. He didn't linger. After saying all that, he turned and left. I remembered my last life, being fired over and over again, ending up working as a server just to survive. One night, in a private dining room, Chad and some old friends were there. They didn't recognize me behind my mask, but they were talking about me. Chad, didn't you say you had feelings for Anna? Then why do you always get her fired whenever she finds a job? Chad laughed softly. Anna was my first love. We had beautiful times. Of course I have feelings for her. But she's too proud. She divorced me without a second thought because of Chloe. I have to crush that pride first. Only when she's dragged into the mud will she be grateful when I pull her out. Only then will she know how to cherish me. In my last life, he dragged me into the mud. In this life, I would let him climb high first. Then fall. True revenge was not hurting his body or his reputation. It was destroying the capital he lived on. What does a man care about? Career. Money. The woman he claims. The children he calls his. And his pride as a man. I was going to let him experience a great height and a brutal fall. I was going to shatter, one by one, everything he valued, right in front of him. Letting him suffer was not enough. I wanted him to go from honey to bitter gall. That kind of pain cuts deepest. And then, the final blow arrived. At the investment presentation, the moment Lily and I walked in, Chad's face filled with disbelief. He recovered quickly, even joking in front of the investors. Is Lily really going to present herself? As far as I know, her speech impediment is quite serious. If needed, I can step in. I smiled. Lily is the chief designer of my company. As for presenting, I'll handle that. His eyes darkened instantly. Lily had once wanted to train her speaking. I told her there was no need. Everyone should do what they're best at. Her strength was design. The rest, I would cover. Chad had been a good teacher. He had taught me without holding back. And in that presentation, I handled every question flawlessly. When I played the video of the completed exhibition space in the coastal city on the big screen, I could see satisfaction spread across the investors' faces. The coastal city was an international art hub. Being recognized there meant it could be replicated nationwide. When the applause broke out, Chad's face went deathly pale. It was as if the bones had been pulled from his body. He collapsed into his seat. When I walked out of the room, I didn't spare him a single glance. 2 months later, Lily and I officially secured our first round of funding. Linden Studio was born. Chapter 10. I didn't see Chad again after that. The day after he showed up downstairs, I moved. Quietly. Without telling a single friend. I knew that blow had been fatal to him. And a cornered animal bites. I wasn't about to leave myself exposed. I heard that after transferring all his assets to me, he had taken out massive loans. Back then, he was confident he could pay everything off soon. Now every last hope had turned to dust. But that was exactly what he deserved. That day, I had just finished meeting with investors at a cafe. I had started the car and was about to pull out when someone suddenly stepped in front of me. Chloe. She looked like a ghost. Skin deathly pale. So thin she was almost unrecognizable. She rushed at my car, eyes wild, shouting, "Anna, please, please tell Chad to let me go. I was wrong. I shouldn't have made you divorce him. I'll apologize, I'll kneel, I'll beg, just please, tell him to spare me." Startled, I lowered the window halfway. Her eyes were filled with terror and desperation. She yanked open her collar. Her neck and chest were covered in dark bruises. "He's insane," she sobbed. "All he does is torture me. He said if I run, my parents and the children will pay. Anna, he loves you. You're the only one he'll listen to. Please, I don't want anything, I'll raise the kids myself, I just want him to let me live." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Once, she had stood in front of me so proudly, flaunting that she had taken Chad, that she was his legal wife. Now she was begging me just to escape him. Suddenly, her body stiffened. She turned her head slowly, mechanically. Chad was standing by a car not far away, watching. Chloe screamed and bolted. Chad got into his car calmly, started the engine, then floored it. In a chorus of screams, the car slammed into her. Chloe was thrown into the air, her body tracing an arc before crashing to the ground with a heavy thud. She didn't move. Blood spread across the pavement. But Chad didn't stop. He looked completely unhinged, steering wildly in another direction. There, a group of kindergarten children stood frozen by the roadside. People screamed. I wrenched the steering wheel and slammed the accelerator to the floor. I had already died once. What was one more time? My teeth clenched. I drove straight toward Chad's out-of-control car. The explosion was deafening. My consciousness faded. And my final thought was, "Damn, my 200 bitcoins." Chapter 11. When I opened my eyes, I found myself lying in a hospital bed. A young nurse lit up in surprise and was about to speak when my weak voice cut in. 2025? She froze for a second, then nodded. I've read enough novels to know the possibilities. Even though my body couldn't move, my mind was already racing. A dream? A dying hallucination? Or, had I been reborn again? The nurse was visibly excited. "You're incredibly lucky. Your heart had actually stopped, and then suddenly, it just started beating again." For the rest of the day, I lay there replaying everything that had happened. If it was a dream, why were the details so precise? Why was all that knowledge about art exhibition design so clear in my head? I could still picture every single detail of the gallery's layout. That evening, Chad walked into my hospital room. This Chad. The powerful, successful version. Well-dressed. Polished. Calm and confident. "Anna, you're all alone. Anyone can bully you. Why don't you consider being my woman? After all, we were once husband and wife." I cut him off. "What's the key to exhibition flow design?" He paused, then answered without thinking. "Finding the balance between natural guidance and free exploration." My heart slammed in my chest. That was exactly the answer he had given me in the other world. But in this life, I had never learned any of that. I struggled to grab my phone and called my roommate, asking her to bring me my laptop. Chad smiled faintly. "Why are you suddenly asking professional questions?" I looked at him and said coldly, "Get out." He laughed as he turned to leave. "Looks like you still haven't suffered enough." Half an hour later, my roommate sent the laptop over by courier. With shaking hands, I opened it, logged in, and typed in that string of numbers burned into my soul. I closed my eyes. Opened them. Pressed confirm. BTC 200.00. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I let out a deep breath. Back then, after I had destroyed Chad and Chloe, I still felt regret. Not for myself. For the version of me in another world. The one who had died so helplessly and miserably. while the people who hurt her went on living happy lives. Maybe trading my life for that ending had moved the universe. Maybe the universe wasn't cruel to me after all. It let me come back. And it even let me bring the money with me. The next month, I obediently followed the doctor's orders, took my meds, got my injections, and in my head, planned every single step ahead. 1 month later, I found Lily again, in that same rundown neighborhood. This time, she almost immediately agreed to work with me. I asked why she trusted me. She thought for a moment and said, "For years, I felt like I was waiting for someone. I didn't know who, but that feeling kept me going. It stopped me from giving up." My eyes stung. Then I smiled at her. "I'm here. Thank you for waiting." At this time, the exhibition industry was being flooded with Chad's standardized model. His slogan was everywhere. 500 Carson Aesthetics galleries nationwide. He had signed a high-stakes, performance-based deal, betting everything he had. 3 months later, a new company quietly appeared in the industry. Linden Studio. Unlike Chad's standardized system, their concept was: an art gallery must have its own soul. It should never become an industrial product. With capital backing, Linden Studio quickly took root in major cities across the country. 1 year later, Linden Studio replaced Carson Aesthetics as the most sought-after gallery brand among artists nationwide. Chad lost his bet and drowned in debt. Then, I mailed him a private investigator's report. Epilogue. Chad's stroke came without warning. The doctors said he had a family history of cerebral infarction, making him far more prone than most, but suffering a stroke at such a young age was still rare. They said when he collapsed, he was clutching a paternity test report in his hand tightly. Out of courtesy, I went to the hospital to see him. He lay stiff on the bed, face twisted, mouth crooked, struggling with all his strength to force out garbled sounds. "She hits me, call the police, she hits me. Anna, please, help me." I leaned down and whispered gently. "That's a matter between husband and wife. How can an outsider interfere? She's your wife. At most, it's domestic violence. Calling the police would be so troublesome, wouldn't it?" When I turned to leave, his eyes were filled with pain and despair. 2 years later, on Lily's birthday, I went to the market to buy ingredients, planning to cook her a proper birthday dinner. A commotion broke out at a nearby stall. I turned my head and saw Chloe. She had been caught stealing ribs, and the vendor was scolding her loudly. "You're young and able. Go get a proper job. Why are you doing this kind of sneaky, shameful thing?" Chloe's face was miserable. She pleaded softly. "I'm unlucky. I've tried many jobs and got fired from all of them. My husband is paralyzed, I have 2 children. I really had no choice." At one point, her eyes met mine. In an instant, shame, anger, jealousy, and resentment all surged across her face. I walked over and whispered into her ear. "Do you know why, for the past 2 years, you've been fired from every single job?" Her eyes widened in shock. I smiled. "Returning the favor. Enjoy it." As I walked out of the market, I heard Chloe scream behind me. A strange sense of reflection washed over me. For a moment, I couldn't tell which was worse. For Chad and Chloe to die together like in the other world. Or to live like this, drowning in debt and torturing each other. But either way, they deserved it. On the drive to Lily's villa, I came across a school letting out. I stopped far away and let the children cross first. As I waited, it suddenly hit me. This was the very intersection where Chad and I had crashed. Now, a group of middle school students walked past my car in neat lines. Young, bright, smiling. They waved at me cheerfully. "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am." I raised my hand and waved back at them with all my strength. The end.